Today, we're diving into Pre-Suasion, that subtle art of setting the stage so your ideas actually resonate. It's about getting that yes before you even ask the question. We're using Robert Cialdini's work as our guide. To kick things off, I think the biggest takeaway for me was how much attention shapes our reality. Like, it's not just about what we focus on, it literally becomes what we perceive as important.
Cialdini uses this example of a study done in Canada where they asked people about their social lives. Some were asked if they were happy with their connections, while others were asked if they were unhappy. People asked about unhappiness were way more likely to report actually being unhappy with their social lives, like 375% more likely. It shows the power of even a single word to shift our entire perception. Just by mentioning unhappiness, the researchers basically primed those people to focus on the negative.
Strategically directing our attention towards what we want to see.
Persuasion, it's about understanding how to subtly nudge people's attention in the direction you want them to go.
How does this play out in real life?
Let's talk about priming. Cialdini says it's this idea that exposure to certain stimuli, like words, images, even sounds, can influence our thoughts and behaviors later on without us even realizing it.
Okay, so kind of like subliminal messaging?
Kind of, but not in a creepy way. Think of it more like setting the mood. Like if you walk into a bakery
And it smells like fresh bread.
you're suddenly craving a croissant, even if you weren't thinking about pastries before.
But how do you use that strategically?
Researchers found that people were willing to pay more at a restaurant if it was called Studio 97 versus Studio 17. The higher number subconsciously primed them to think expensive, even though the food and atmosphere were identical. Think about the words you use in a presentation, the images on your website, even the music playing in a store. It's all subtly shaping people's perceptions.
So if I'm trying to, say, pitch a bold new idea to my boss, a stuffy boardroom probably isn't the best environment.
You want a space that primes creativity and innovation. Think natural light, maybe some artwork on the walls, something that sparks those ideas before you even open your mouth.
It's almost like you're curating an experience, not just delivering information.
You're setting the stage for your message to land the way you want it to. And that's where Cialdini's 7 principles of influence come in. We're talking about how to create the right conditions for persuasion, right? So think of these principles as like the tools in your persuasion toolkit. So first up, reciprocity.
You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
But here's the Pre-Suasion twist. You got to be the first one scratching. Give something before you ask. It flips the script. Even small gestures create this sense of obligation, makes people way more receptive.
It's like you're investing in the relationship up front. What's next in our toolkit?
Liking. This one's pretty intuitive. We tend to say yes to people we like.
Do I need to start handing out compliments left and right?
It's not about being fake. It's about finding those genuine points of connection.
Yeah.
Did they share an interesting article? Do you have a mutual friend? Even just mentioning you admire their work can go a long way. Authenticity is key here. Principle number 3, social proof.
If everyone's raving about that new restaurant, I have to try it.
Or think about those bestseller lists or products with thousands of 5-star reviews. It's like our brains are wired to follow the crowd. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a mental shortcut, especially when we're feeling uncertain. So as a persuasion tactic, it's about subtly highlighting that social proof. Picture this. You're looking at a menu, feeling overwhelmed by the choices. And then you see it. Chef's recommendation or our most popular dish. Suddenly the decision's so much easier.
What's next?
Authority. In the context of persuasion, authority isn't about pulling rank. It's about showcasing your expertise in a way that feels authentic and earned.
Less about bragging, more about subtle signaling.
Cialdini gives this example of a waiter who actually advises you against ordering a certain dish. Like, honestly, the chef messed up the sauce tonight. I'd go with the pasta instead.
They're willing to lose a sale just to give an honest recommendation.
And what does that tell you about that waiter?
That they actually care about my experience, not just about making a quick buck.
And suddenly you trust their judgment.
Revealing a weakness can actually make you seem more credible.
It's counterintuitive, but it works because it builds trust, which is the foundation of any successful persuasive attempt. Ready for the next one?
Bring it on.
Scarcity.
Like those limited time offers that make me want to whip out my credit card immediately?
Yep. We place a higher value on things that are scarce, whether it's a product, an experience, or even just information.
You always want what you can't have.
And you can leverage this principle in how you frame things. Instead of saying, yeah, my schedule's pretty open next week, try something like, I'm fully booked next week, but I've carved out an hour tomorrow afternoon just for you. You're highlighting the scarcity of your time without being pushy. Number 6 is all about leveraging our need for
Consistency, like being reliable and following through on your promises.
That's part of it, but it goes deeper than that. Cialdini says once we've committed to something, even in a small way, we're much more likely to stay consistent with that commitment in the future. Let's say you're trying to persuade your team to adopt a new project management system. Instead of launching into a long presentation about all its features, start by asking, do we all agree that our current system isn't very efficient?
Get them nodding their heads yes, and then boom, you've got them.
You've secured that initial commitment. They've admitted there's a problem. Now, you can position the new system as the solution, and they're much more likely to be on board.
Because they want to be consistent with their previous statement. It's almost like you're planting a seed and then nurturing it over time. Last but not least, principle number 7, unity.
It's a relatively recent addition to Cialdini's framework. Unity taps into our deep-seated human need to belong.
That feeling of we're all in this together.
It's a powerful bonding agent. Think about your favorite sports team winning a championship. Suddenly, you feel connected to complete strangers who share that same passion. You don't need a major event to create that sense of unity. Even subtle cues can do it. Think about the language you use, we instead of I, highlighting shared experiences. Even wearing similar clothing or using the same jargon can foster that we're on the same team feeling.
Those little things can create this sense of we're in this together, which then makes us more open to whatever message is coming our way. Sometimes the most effective persuasion is subtle, almost invisible.
Even just changing a few words in how you frame a request can make a huge difference. Instead of saying, hey, can you take a look at this report when you get a chance? Try, I'd really value your feedback on this report. Could you lend me your expert eye when you have a moment? You're framing it as a request for their valuable expertise, not just another task on their to-do list.
It's like you're speaking directly to their intrinsic motivation.
Now that you're aware of these principles, you'll start to see them everywhere.
You can't unsee it now.
Think about how you react to things. What grabs your attention? What makes you want to say yes? Once you understand your own triggers, you can start to use those insights in your own communication.